Hello everyone, this is Steel from Studio Blue. The most important aspect in making your game, novel, or screenplay is mastering the creation of powerful story arcs. This video goes over the structure of those narrative beats, whether it's a chapter in a book, a section of gameplay, or an act in a movie. Saddle in for a technical look at a winning formula, because class is in session. Hello everyone, this is Steel from Studio Blue. I hope you're having yourself a wonderful evening. Welcome to Creator Classroom. Tonight we're going to be going over Introduction to Story Arcs. Let's welcome everyone to the stream. Hello Miaca, hello Ventus. No, I'm not going to shoot soda out of my nose. At least, I hope not. Anyway, I hope you all are doing really well this evening. It has been a heck of a morning. Now, as far as audio goes, if the opening for the stream didn't have any audio, that's fine. That's a small hiccup that I can fix later on. But if you can hear my voice, that's what's important. So, anyway, welcome to the stream, Corey. The context of the soda is that Ventus made a joke on the Studio Blue Discord channel, and I was drinking a soda at the exact same time I saw it, and things did not end well for me. So, hopefully that's the context that you need. Hello, BG. Hello, Human. And yes, sushi is wonderful. I do hope every last one of you are having an amazing day. This is going to be a very intense classroom. I don't even know if I'm going to get to the workshop portion of it, to be completely and totally honest. The reason I say that is because this is a very, very involving subject. Like, seriously involving. Story arcs themselves, the actual creation of them, there's so much that goes into it. It's a lot of quote-unquote creative science. So I'm broken it down, and I believe I've broken it down in a way that can teach you all the best methodologies for constructing it, your story arcs within your game. Now, I have a little bit of a weird setup with one of my monitors. I think I can see what chat is saying. If I don't immediately respond, please forgive me. I will absolutely try to keep up with everything. Anyway, let's go ahead and jump into the summary for today. First thing we're going to be going over is the definition of a story arc. A lot of people have sort of a misunderstanding as to what a story arc actually is. Second, we're going to go over the narrative structure of a story arc, touching upon Nigel Watts's 8 points. And I will be going back to that later on in this workshop. Then we'll go over a graphical chart to kind of give you a visual of how a story arc actually works, as opposed to how a story arc is assumed to be. People often have a misconception of how a story arc flows. Then we'll go over 8 types of arc movement. Those are 6 varieties, talked about by a writer named Joe Bunting. Then we're actually going to go over examples of the application of everything we learned going through a game, a book, and a film. So it'll kind of all come together then. Then, if and only if we have time, then we will go over an actual workshop. I'll take a quick 5-minute break, put you on a BRB, and when I come back, we'll do the workshop. So we'll see how that goes. So let me go ahead and grab some water here. There we go. Okay, I got the monitor issue fixed. So if at any point you need me, just go ahead and say something. I am monitoring chat, and ding me if you absolutely need me to see it. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Welcome to the stream, everyone. If I didn't say hi, I think I got y'all. Let's go right on into the lesson. So, what exactly is a story arc? Well, a story arc is the pattern of a story's action, from start to finish, over the course of the narrative, how it rises, falls, and shapes everyone involved. stories, they can be games, books, or movies, will all have multiple story arcs. So there's no such thing as a one story arc. Good story arcs have multiple arcs running in parallel. So you'll have your story here with one character, your story with another one, and they'll be running in parallel. That's a good story. The great ones will have multiple arcs running in parallel, and they each influence each other. So you'll have character over here, and they'll do something that will influence character B, and what they do together influences character C. So that's a great story. An amazing story will do all of that, but fool the audience into thinking they're just watching one big arc. It becomes seamless at that point. And the bad ones have too many arcs that you can't keep track of. Well, anytime you have more than a reader can hold mentally, less than what can engage the reader, or confuses or drops, so dropped story arcs, all of that leads to a bad quote-unquote story. So it's not just about being too complex or too simple. Sometimes it's about abandoning. Kingdom Hearts is very confusing. Yes, I love the game, I love the series, but as I've said a million times, Corey, and to multiple streams, they made the first one and they had no plan for anything beyond it, and it shows in pretty much the rest of the IP. So, having said that, we are going to move on. BG says, I've read some books that had too many arcs and felt like they needed to put more work into the book than I put into my courses. Yeah, some stories are so convoluted, so unbelievably complex that the reader loses their place. And that's the hallmark of not a good story in fictional sense. If it's history that you're recounting, that's different. Statements need to put more work. Yeah. I agree with that, BG. Your statement about more work than your classes. Miaca says, yeah, I've had some book series where I left, need to take notes and draw graphs. Exactly. Yes. That's why a lot of fantasy stories will actually either have timelines and or maps. It's to help the reader get over that one hump. Hi, Bubba Hotep. Good to see you, man. All right, moving on. So this is Watts's narrative structure. Now, we are going to come back to this. That's why I have it printed up right over here on my table, because this is really important. Now, Nigel Watts wrote a book called How to Write Your Story and Get It Published. It is actually a really good sort of blueprint on constructing a story that has a better chance of getting agented or picked up or published simply because it follows the formula. Now, no one person has 100% the right way to get your book, game, movie, whatever, published or popular. A lot of times things can become popular strictly through the demand of the public. That's how you have things like Twilight becoming massive sensations. So I'm teaching you the tools to construct something that is well constructed. I cannot teach you how to make your story, your game, your book, your movie successful, because the factors in there are beyond just the creative process. So please keep that in mind. Now, when talking about these 8 points, the first, that is the status quo, the stasis. Okay, we talked about that in one of our previous workshops. The status quo is the normality, the current way things are that are going to need to be broken, shook up, and reforged in order for the story to move forward. This can be something as simple as Bilbo Baggins hanging out in Bag End in the Shire, enjoying a nice meal when a bunch of dwarves just pop on into his place. It could be as more complex as Katniss Everdeen trying to survive in her district with her little sister, and then suddenly the Hunger Games begin. So the status quo doesn't always have to be humdrum normalcy. The status quo for Luke Skywalker in the original New Hope. He starts off as a poor farm boy, but there's a massive rebellion going on around him. So just keep that in mind. The stasis doesn't necessarily mean safe and sound. It just means the status quo that is normal to your protagonist. Then there's the trigger. That's point 2. That's the incident. That is the thing that pushes the characters, especially the protagonist, away from the status quo, making them break the stasis. The reason this is so vitally important is because a character needs a push into agency, and it can be as minor as possible. People don't break the status quo. Very few stories, not none of them, very few stories start with the hero going, I'm going to go do a hero. that doesn't really happen. Most of them have a thing occur, and it could be a very minor thing. It doesn't always have to be a damn dragon landing like an Aragon. It can be something as itty-bitty as Bilbo having some guests, unexpected guests. It could be as minute as returning from a mission, a la Final Fantasy IV. In my game, you were... Okay, so BG says, my game, you were pushed as your girlfriend was taken over by a dark force, you ended up in an odd world. Yeah, that's a trigger. I mean, that is absolutely a trigger. Anytime anything takes the protagonist and pushes them out of the status quo, even if it's enough for them to continue the journey on their own, that's the trigger. Then point number 3 is the quest. So, what is the quest? The quest is the actual process under which the change will be realized. Now, this can be as big or as little, and as far-reaching or as short as humanly possible. Some quests last only a little bit of time. Those are things like getting to Bree in the Fellowship of the Rings, while the overarching quest of destroying the ring is pretty huge. Other quests actually result in failure. Ned Stark and half the cast of A Game of Thrones. So you don't have to think of the quest as Dirk the Daring saving Princess Daphne from the dragon. That's not always what the quest is. The quest is a journey. BG says, and now you're like, what the fuck? Yeah, exactly. Surprise. The surprise. Point number 4. That is the moment in which an unexpected force it forces that character to change in order to complete the quest. So it's boring if the character just moves along the quest in a predictable manner. So hero has to go save the princess from the dragon. Hero goes and walks through the castle, goes to the right, gets the magic sword, goes to the left, kills the dragon, and then rescues the princess. That's boring. A surprise is anything that pushes them outside of that comfort zone and forces them to initiate some kind of a change, either within themselves, the people around them, the world itself, a combination thereof. That's the surprise. And stories can have many surprises, because as we're going to go over in a little bit, this is a story arc, not a story we're talking about. But you have to have some unexpected element. Then there's the critical choice. This is the huge part in which the character actively decides to show an agency needed to effect a change. And this can be as massive, again, as deciding to topple the government, like in Mockingjay with Katniss. It could be as monumental to the entire universe as taking down Emperor Palpatine, or it could be as minute and tiny as deciding to just go and my brain went blank. Going and rescuing a person, I don't know. It can be tiny. It doesn't have to be big. It can be small. So just think about that critical choice. Sometimes some of the best choices in the world that affect the most people are the smallest. The disastrous last season of Game of Thrones is a good example of that. That teeny tiny decision by Arya Stark to go in that direction ends up allowing her to kill the Night King. It's a very small choice, but it's a critical choice. She creates an agency. Then there's the climax. The climax is a moment. It is a highest peak of tension. Most people think of the climax as the ending, and that's not what it is. The climax is when the tension, the stakes, everything is as high as humanly possible. Exactly, Ventus. Yeah, it happens in real life. Small choices, big changes. Exactly. The climax is that moment in which everything that could possibly be at stake is now at stake. The critical choice leads to the climax, and that all leads to the reversal, or as we like to call in Magic, the prestige, which is not really the case, but I love that term. So the reversal is the consequence of that critical choice, and it's the culmination of the climax. So it's all those things coming together. And that results in a change to the characters, others involved, and an aspect of the world. And this is up to including everything. Now remember, because we're talking about story arcs here, and we're not just talking about stories, these little pieces can be the chunk of something much bigger. you can have all of this leading up to the resolution, which we'll get to in a second, in which all you're doing is setting the stage for the next bit of momentum. Final Fantasy IV, for example. That whole mist experience that leads to the Mist Cave, the destruction of the Mist Dragon, which causes them to basically kill Rydia's mother, and then the destruction of Mist Village, all follows this narrative structure. Because in the end, the decision is made by Cecil and Kain to abandon Baron, which forces them on the story. But that is a narrative. That is a full story arc. And then finally the resolution, which is the new status quo. This is where things will be, but with the characters changed. And the resolution, the new status quo, can go into a new stasis, because all the resolution is a new stasis. So you can go stasis all the way down to resolution, and then resolution, another stasis, which is another story arc, another narrative. For example, again, Final Fantasy IV, after the destruction of Mist, when Cecil and Kain decide they are going to go against the Kingdom of Baron because of what they did, that starts the next stasis, which is the stasis is now Cecil and Kain are against the Kingdom of Baron. That's the new stasis, and it starts on a new part of the story. And that is the basic narrative structure. Now, highly complex and very scientific because you're applying it across the board to each story arc. Yes, you can apply this to your entire narrative, your entire story, your whole game, your whole book, your whole movie. But for each individual story arc, for each of those milestones, you want to apply this narrative structure as well. Now we're going to move on to the next point, but I'm going to grab some water real quick. All right. The graphical structure. So when you visualize how a story goes, whether it be a story arc, the meta arc of several books, a single book, it doesn't matter. Any kind of story arc, any kind of narrative, people visualize this. You have the rising action passing above the line of comfort, all the way up to the top where the climax is, and then you come down to the falling action, which eventually lands in the resolution/denouement. This is not correct. This is a misconception, unfortunately, that a lot of writing students are taught. This is not how a story arc actually works. This is. Story arcs are a complex series of rises and falls, pieces and parts, where things go up and down, up and down. But if you will notice, that climax is the highest point. Hey, Wrath of Wood, welcome to the stream. Glad you could make it. So that's where we're at as far as how it works graphically. You can imagine in your head how it works. You start off at your status quo, you move, you go up and down, good things happen, bad things happen, positives, negatives, which we'll get to that in a second. You have your rising actions, which is excitement and momentum, falling actions, which are those moments of reprieve that we've talked about in previous creator classrooms. And then finally, when you reach the climax, that's the part of the story, whether it be a piece of a story arc like a chapter, the complete story of that whatever game or book or whatever, or the meta story of the entire thing. The climax is the absolute highest point of tension and stakes. So keep that in mind. You can't have, let's see if I can move my mouse. Grand! You can't have a climax be here and then continue your story arc. The climax is the highest point and results in the falling action that ends that particular arc. The conclusion of your arc, aka the resolution denouement, always occurs shortly after the climax. So hopefully this kind of puts things in perspective. And the only reason I say that, climax is always near the end. Exactly, Wrath of Wood. Right. Climax, falling action, denouement/resolution, new status quo, and then you repeat, and it's status quo, and then you move on. So this right here is multiple instances of this narrative structure we went through earlier, where the climax is at the very end. So keep that in mind. Now we're going to move on, and I'm going to start tying these together. Okay, so now we have the types of arc movement, and this is by Joe Bunting. He defined it on a website called The Right Practice. It's a really good website. I do recommend it. It's therightpractice.com. And what Joe Bunting does is he talks about varieties of positive and negative story movement. Now, this isn't the same as rising, falling action. Rising and falling action is momentum of stake and tension. So when you have this rising action here, the stakes and the tension are going up. So this curve right here is you as the writer or the game designer or the script writer, storyteller, etc., denoting a rise in tension and stakes. This is a lowering, aka moment of reprieve. Then it's rising again up and up, with the climax being that moment where it's the highest. What Bunting is talking about and how this all ties in is this is positive and negative, that try, succeed, fail cycle, success, failure that we have addressed in previous creator classroom. These 6 varieties, just like the 8 narrative structures, are by no means sacrosanct and in stone. They're the ones that, as I was researching this, I felt, yeah, this works best for with how I'm trying to teach you this rather complex topic. So I'm going to go over each of these, and then I'm going to make a point before we move on to the sample work. What I'm presenting to you in these 6 are how they are related to an overall story of a book, not how they are related to a story arc. So I will get into that in a second. This is just to give you a visual. So first one is The Rise. That is a rag to riches style story, rag to riches movement where things continually to improve despite adversity. A great example of that is Roald Dahl's Matilda. Matilda starts at the absolute bottom. She's in an abusive household with a father who does not love her, a mother who doesn't understand her, and I believe a brother who is an absolute just dick to her. New status quo doesn't literally mean new social status quo, right? It can be yes, exactly, Ventus. The new status quo is the new stasis. It's the new, this is my normal. It's the new normal for the character, the world, a group of characters, etc. So whatever you're operating on, that new status quo is the comfort zone, the normalcy that will have to get broken in the next story arc. Okay, so back to this. So Matilda has a really bad thing. She goes to a school, it gets worse, things are just terrible for her, but eventually over the course of the story, things get better and better and better. She develops telekinesis, a fantastic book, by the way, and a great movie. And Danny DeVito's in it. By the end, Matilda's living an idealistic, happy life with a mother who cares for her, and everything's great. Then there's The Fall. This is the exact opposite, a riches to rags style movement, where things steadily decline despite character agency. Animal Farm's a fantastic example of that. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad. It is a great book, and things just steadily get worse and worse and worse. Then the third one is The Recovery. It's a fall followed by a rise. So the character loses something but then gains something else. The Hobbit is a fantastic example of that. Bilbo Baggins' status quo is utterly uprooted. He is torn from his home, partially by not his own desire, and ends up on a quest where he nearly gets killed several times. But in the end, he comes back fantastically wealthy for a Hobbit of the Shire, with a magic ring, and a level of prestige among the elves and the dwarves of Middle-earth that no Hobbit has ever had before. So, the recovery. Then there's the inverse of that, the failure. A rise followed by a fall, in which the character gains something and then loses it. Cannot think of a better example than Shakespeare's Macbeth. In Macbeth, he has everything. He gains it all, and man, does he lose it. Maybe Hamlet would be another good example. Shakespeare loved to have people succeed and then fail. Number 5, The Victory. It's a rise, followed by a fall, followed by another rise. So it's the beginning of success, massive adversity, and then success. So the character gains, loses, and then ends up better off. Jane Eyre, fantastic book by Bronte. Oh, love Bronte's Jane Eyre is a great story. If you like the classics, please read it. And it's a great example of a person who goes through hell, but then comes out in the end better off than she started. And then the last one is The Defeat. It's a fall, followed by a rise, followed by another fall, in which the character loses something, gains it or more back, and then loses much of everything. And the best example of that is Gone with the Wind. Scarlett O'Hara starts off as the Belle, loses it due to the war, brings herself back up from nothing, and then loses the man she loved. So that's the defeat. Now, oh yeah, Shakespeare is a darling murderer. He kills everybody. Hamlet, Othello, Macbeth are some of my favorite tragedies ever. I love me some Shakespeare. King Lear's good too. And all right, so although Mr. Bunting is presenting things as overall narrative arcs for a complete story, these can be used for story arc. And this is where things are really important when we move on to the next portion, which is where the meat of this is going to be. You don't have to take a story on a whole and say it's a ride. Lion King with humans. Yeah, basically. Oh, that's funny, Ventus. So you don't have to have a rise story. You don't have to have a recovery story. Yeah, you can think of that in your overall complete story arc. It's good to kind of have that in your head, but it's much more effective when you apply that and Watts' narrative structure to a single story arc. Now, what is a story arc in relation to things like a game, a book, a film? Well, various pieces and parts. A chapter of a book can be a story arc, or several chapters that tell a complete milestone. That's a story arc. A part of a game, a piece of a game. Yeah, right. Lion King is Hamlet. Hamlet is Lion King. Pretty much. So yeah, back to games. A video game's story arc can be a part of it, a quote-unquote chapter, if you will, in which the heroes do a certain thing. Some games actually have chapters, and those are their story arcs. A movie's story arc can be part of its act, like a 3-act play. It really depends. So the length of time of a story arc is subjective. Don't lock yourself into thinking it has to be a physical chapter or an hour of gameplay or 30 minutes of runtime. That's not how it works. A story arc starts and ends with a status quo. That's your milestone. That's how you know. So when you, as a game designer, a writer, or a filmmaker, are tracking your story arc, use those status quos as your marker. All right, give me 1 second. We'll move on. By the way, if anyone does have any particular questions, feel free to throw them out. I know this can be a little intense, but we're going to get to the part where we're going to start breaking stuff down. And exactly what we're going to do now is we are going to use what we just learned, and this is going to be the meat of things, using art application for games, books, and film, which is what Creator Classroom is meant to help. We are going to present some sample slices of the story arcs, creating the overall narrative for Final Fantasy VI, known as 3 in the US originally, The Fellowship of the Ring, which is the first volume of Lord of the Rings, that's book 1 and book 2, and the original Disney's Frozen. We have a little bit of a thing here. While I'm getting ready, I want you guys to toss this out. Which one of these three do you think is actually technically the most dark, has the highest level of negative action? You can toss that out in the chat. We'll see who actually wins the slime points, the bonus points, the brownie points, the cookie points for this. Is it Final Fantasy VI, The Fellowship of the Ring, or Frozen? Which one is technically, on a technical level, the darkest? Zarsla asks about, oh hey Zarsla, welcome to the stream. What about arcs where the character returns to the same status quo but doesn't really change? It doesn't have to be the character that changes, Zarsla. Something around them has to change, or the story is going to be uninteresting. So, I think Holden and Catcher of the Rye is a good example. I don't think he actually changes during the course of the story, but things around him do. So there is a new status quo. Even if he himself is the same boring, lack of agency person, the life around him has changed to some extent. So there is no way that you can have a story where everything is exactly the same as it began and it still be interesting without some really clever writing. I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm saying that's a huge challenge, and I would like to see someone actually succeed in that. If you can toss out an example, that'd be amazing. But for the most part, a thing changes in the status quo. Ventus says, One Piece is a good example of how story arcs work. The new status quo could be 1. Yeah, the character, yes. Very good. Most anime follow story arcs really well. Even the ones that have filler have story arcs. All right, so while I'm getting this ready, and I'm going to go grab myself a Coke because I want a soda. I've been drinking water the whole time, cheating. I want you all to give me your thoughts. Which of these three on screen do you feel is going to be the most technically dark? This is dark in a technical level. Has the most negative action over the course of the narrative. The game Final Fantasy VI, that's the one with Terra, Kefka, Locke, etc. The book, The Fellowship of the Ring, or the movie Frozen. I will literally be back in a second. You're going to hear me get a thing from the fridge. Well, people are saying Frozen, all right. Time to pop a cop. Boom. Pop a top. Well, I didn't snort my soda just now, but I spilt it on me, so yay. Apparently I'm incapable of not having a mess. Pardon me. Okay, yeah, if you guys think Frozen, that's fantastic. If someone wants to be a dissenting opinion, that's good too. There's no wrong answers, just one right one. Okay, here we go. Now for each of these... Hey, welcome to the stream, Kia, and he has never seen Frozen, so there you go. Alright, so we're going to jump on in, and for these, I'm also going to apply Watts' narrative structure and talk about them. So this is where the bulk of the rest of the lecture is going to be. We'll see how much energy and time I have left when this is done, because we're going to kind of tear this apart. Here we go. First, we're going to start with Final Fantasy VI. Now, for those of you who don't know the story of Final Fantasy VI, it is considered by some to be one of Squaresoft's best Final Fantasies. It is literally a rebellion storyline very similar to Star Wars: A New Hope, in which a group of rebels called the Returners go against an evil empire. However, it also has the twist of the bad guy actually winning about halfway through the game. So, first we're going to go over the points on screen, and then I'm going to go over Watts' narrative structure. If you want to toss out thoughts, go ahead. So first off, we have, and I've broken them down into 6 pieces. This is not the entire story. So I want you to know for all 3 of these, I've summarized it for the sake of simplicity. I recognize that some of these stories are far more complex. The first one we have is the prologue of Final Fantasy VI. This is the beginning of the game where Biggs, Wedge, and Terra attack Narshe, bad things happen, and eventually Terra is brought away to go to Figaro and starts meeting up with people. Frozen is the best JRPG ever created. That's cute. So this is a rise. This prologue is a rise. It focuses on the small group of rebels, the Returners, specifically Locke and Edgar, finding hope after rescuing Terra from the Magitech Patrol. So the game starts at a low point. Terra is a slave. She has a slave crown on. They are attacking this mining town, Narshe, simply because it holds an Esper. And the world itself has already been pretty badly damaged because of the use of Magitech. So we're at a very low point in Final Fantasy VI. And it starts to rise over the course of this because through the actions of Locke and Edgar, we start to see a level of hope. This moves over into the next part, which I'm calling the party. And this is another rise archetype. This focuses on bringing together an ensemble cast. Sidebar, Final Fantasy VI has one of the, if not the largest, main Final Fantasy properties, main casts ever. Massive. They include an Imperial General, person who starts off as a main villain, whose conscience leads her to betraying the Empire, and that's Celes. So during the course of this rise, the party, this part of the story, this story arc, which follows after, of course, the first one, we're building together groups of people. Now, the reason I put it as a rise, even though there's tragedy, because there's terrible things, like Cyan's family gets poisoned when Doma is poisoned. There's contention between Sabin and Vargas. There's negativity, but the overall course is a rising course, a increase in hope and positivity. Then we move on to the past, which is a victory moment. That is a victory archetype. So what happens is, at the beginning of, and this is one of those ones that dips, at the beginning of the victory, at the beginning of the past, the Returners are hit with their first blow. Bad things happen, up to and including Terra just turning into a big pink thing and flying off. So after Terra goes Super Saiyan, they search for her. People kind of break up in different groups. There's a lot of confusion, but then they come back together. They learn that Terra is a half Esper, and that creates an even greater amount of hope. So we've been moving up this whole time. We're now in a story. So the first two story arcs are moving up, up, up. The past, the third story arc, we have our first hit, a real hard one. But then we come right back up and we keep going. Then we move over to the fourth story arc, which is the Espers. That archetype is the defeat. So what happens here is that it looks like things are going to go fine. We're moving up, but then suddenly the Empire literally pulls it out right from underneath us. This is that scene where you have the dinner with Gestalt. You talk about how he realizes he's screwed up. How, it's a very obvious betrayal coming, but the characters kind of fall for it. Yada, yada. The next thing you know, Kefka goes nuclear inside of the Esper town and gets all the magicite forever. It is a terrible, terrible blow. And Thalmaza burns to the ground. You almost lose Strago and Realm. Bad things happen. So then we move over to the statues. That's the fifth story arc. In this one, this is called the failure. Up until this point, there's always been a belief among the heroes and the player that in order to complete this story, in order to quote-unquote win, the Empire has to be defeated. The generals like Kefka, Leo, and the rest of them have to be taken down. And then the Emperor himself, Gestalt, the big bad guy, has to be stopped. They've done this before, Final Fantasy II, etc. They go after the statues of magic. You have this moment in which everything looks like it's going to work out, and then the game flips the script by having Kefka kill everybody, murder his emperor, and then push the statues out of alignment and blow the world to hell. That's a failure. We went up, we almost got it, and then the whole world gets destroyed. And then the final story arc, which comprises of many story arcs, again, I'm just taking slices, which I'm calling the Reckoning, is a recovery. This one focuses on the heroes recollecting themselves, completing their character stories, which are many, many character arcs. That's everything from the characters finding themselves again, Celis realizing that she can make a difference, Terra finding out love, etc., etc. And then finally, it culminates in them going into the final dungeon and defeating Kefka. The final story arc is called The Reckoning because that's what it is. The world's been destroyed. They're doing Avenger shit at that point. So this story starts off on a massive high point. It goes up, 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 and then it comes crashing down twice. The first crash is when the Empire betrays. The second crash is when Kefka destroys the world, and you hit the bottom of the barrel. Then the rest of the story at that point is the build back up to a new status quo, which is living in a world that's been destroyed. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the narrative structure here. So this is not for the whole story arc. It will be here all night if I took each one of these 6 points and went over Watts' structure. But we're going to go over the full story. So the stasis, the status quo, yeah, basically Avengers Endgame. Yeah, pretty much. Exactly. So the status quo of Final Fantasy VI, when it starts, is actually a very bleak world. It is a world where magic has been overused, the Espers have retreated from society, and this evil empire pretty much runs things in sort of this dark, gross steampunk way. It's a very negative status quo, a very dark status quo. The overall story trigger is Terra being awoken from her slave crown. She is the catalyst for the entire story. She's not the hero of the story, although she is presented as the main character in many ways, up to and including being the Dissidia character from Final Fantasy VI. She is the catalyst. She is what pushes everything forward. Then there's the quest. The quest is the journey to figure out how to stabilize the world. So over the course of all these different story arcs, over the course of these character arcs, everything is driving forward to bringing some semblance of stability and peace. Remember, magic in the Final Fantasy VI world is an outside force that is technically alien to its inhabitants. I'm not talking about the Espers, I'm talking about the humans. People don't naturally use magic. It has to be put into them. Now, granted, the goddesses who created the world with the statues are considered to be creator beings, but they gave their magic to the Espers, not the humans. So keep that in mind, that these people are trying to cope in a world they did not design, they did not ask for, they are not prepared for. And then we have the surprise. There are multiple of them, the biggest one being the destruction of the world. That is the moment in which everything is flipped on its head, and is, in my opinion, probably one of the best plot twists Square has ever done. Some will disagree. I still to this day remember dropping my controller. Then number 5, the critical choice. Okay, now this is, to me, one of the best critical choices I have ever seen in a Final Fantasy game, and I am swearing by Final Fantasy VII Remake right now. The critical choice of the characters, every last one of them in Final Fantasy VI, is live or die. They are faced with this bleak world after Kefka destroys it, and many people do not continue living. So these heroes, Terra, Celis, all of them, do I live or do I die? And that is best exemplified in the very beginning of the World of Ruin storyline, when Celis, regardless of whether or not Cid lives or dies, gets on that raft, pushes herself out to find someone. The climax is, of course, the final battle. Most JRPGs, the climax is the final battle. And it is the highest moment of tension. And for those of you who have never actually played or watched Final Fantasy VI, see if you can get a YouTube video of the final battle against Kefka. The Super NES version, I don't really know about the Steam version, but watch the whole thing from the moment they meet him and start talking to him to the moment he insults them for sounding like chapters from a self-help book, to the moment they fight him. It is a descent into madness as they destroy this evil god piece by piece. It's very well done. Probably, it is my favorite final battle. Then there's the reversal. That's the consequence. By destroying, and I mean this, by destroying Kefka, they destroy the statues. Okay, cool. Good to know, Zarsel. I've never actually played it. I've heard negative and positive things about the Steam versions of the Final Fantasy games, so if it's good, I love it. That'd be good. Here's the reversal. Here's the consequence. By destroying Kefka and the statues, the heroes destroy magic. And fortunately, this doesn't cost Terra her life, because Terra, the human part, finds love and friendship and need and the other people to be a part of her. So while her Esper half dies, her human half does not. And that's a very good thing too, because they go into the final battle, is Terra going to die or not? However, that leads to the resolution, aka the new status quo. The new status quo is a world that is technically no better than where we left it. It's a world that is screwed up. It's a world where society is all over the place. A ton of rebuilding is going to need to be done. They show moments of hope during the epilogue, where, for example, Katarine has her child. Things like that. However, this is now a world where humanity is going to have to rebuild block by block, but this time without magic. So the new status quo is similar to the old status quo in the sense of life is hard. But now life is hard without this external force that humans were never designed for. That is the narrative structure of Final Fantasy VI. If anyone has any questions before I move on to the next one, please shoot them out. I'm going to drink some more. Hola. By the way, if at any point while I'm giving these lectures you have anything you want to toss out, please feel free to. Can a character have two arcs? For example, characters have internal struggles? Absolutely. Oh yeah. When we get to... So this is beyond the scope of this particular Creator Classroom Ventus, but there'll be one we're going to do specifically on conflict. And yes, absolutely. What you're talking about is man versus himself and man versus man. And those are conflict types, and conflicts are not to be confused with story arc. Story arcs need one conflict, but can have multiple conflict. So, to answer your question, yes. Because what you're saying is, can a person have two conflicts? Absolutely. Hey, Reverie, welcome to the stream. Good to see you. Pardon me. All right, let us move on. The Fellowship of the Ring. By the way, I am referring to the book, not the film, although the film is amazing. Holy hell. I'm talking about the book. So, put this down. Now let's talk about the archetypes. Pardon me. All right, so the Fellowship of the Ring starts with a birthday. And this archetype is a failure. It's the failure. And I actually took a little while kind of going back and forth between this one and Fall, but I realized, no, it really is a failure because Frodo starts off kind of at a very boring status quo living as Bilbo's nephew. Bilbo has his birthday, goes away, and Frodo suddenly inherits and I believe this is accurate, metric ass ton of money and property up in Bag End. And honestly, I think it's like years. He is like one of the wealthiest hobbits in the Shire. It's actually pretty amazing. And then he gets a visit from Gandalf. Is it safe? And realizes he has to give it all up. So this is a fall. This is a failure. This is him starting off going all the way up high and then poop plummeting down as he realizes he has to give everything up because one ring. Actually pretty shitty. But it moves on to the Exodus. Pardon me. Ooh, excuse me. The Exodus is an archetype of the Rise. And this is where the hobbits, Merry, Pippin, Frodo, and Sam, have mild adventures without ever being truly in danger. And the reason I say that is because of Tom Bombadil. Now, I'm not talking about the movie. In the books, up until the moment they get to Bree, and even when they meet Aragorn in Bree, it's actually a very mild adventure, the Fellowship of the Rings. Yes, there are moments in which the ring wraiths are terrifying, and you as the reader are probably scared or worried for them because these things are terrible. But Frodo resists the temptation to wear the ring. They don't get killed by the borrow rights because Tom Bombadil is a deus ex machina. Eventually, they make it to Bree, to the Prancing Pony, have an amazing scene where they're drinking pints and singing, and then meet up with Aragorn, son of Arathorn, who happens to be, the next in line for the King of Gondor. So things really work out during the Exodus portion of the Fellowship of the Ring. Then we move on to the third story arc, which is the Danger. Now, this is a fall, and it's a hard fall, because after meeting Aragorn and starting to head towards Rivendell, they hit peril after peril, danger after danger, up to and including, and the first time I read this in the book, I was outright terrified, because I was like 10 years old. Frodo getting stabbed by a ring wraith. If you ever get a chance to, you probably have watched the movies by Peter Jackson, but also watch the animated movie by Ralph Bakshi. They do a really good job of that scene where the ring wraith attacks, Frodo puts on the ring and gets ass stabbed by that ring wraith. It's a really good sequence. Also, they kind of change things up a little bit because in the movies for Peter Jackson, Arwen is the one that saves Frodo when actually they meet Legolas, and it's Elrond who actually does the river thing, not Arwen. I love Arwen. She's a great character, but hey man, Elrond's the man. Anyway, that whole thing is a fall. The whole Danger third story arc is a fall. Because up until then, the adventure has never been real. It has never been a life or death struggle where the forces of Sauron can kill your ass at any moment. It's been pretty much a derpy-derp adventure. The Danger part, the third story arc, Frodo realizes for the first time that his life could easily end. Terribly so. Maybe even becoming a ring wraith. So then we move on to the fourth story arc, which is the meeting. Now, this is a rise. Okay, and the reason I call this the meeting is because they have that long-ass 2-chapter meeting in the book. Absolutely fantastic. It's done well in the movies as well. But during this time, Frodo recovers. Sam, Merry, Pippin, they're all reunited. Everything's great. He gets to see Bilbo. Bilbo does a cameo. And actually, I like that one because Bilbo shows how the ring is an addiction. You meet up with the rest of the principal cast during this. And this is a rise, by the way. I didn't mention that. This is an archetype of rise because you're meeting Gimli, freaking amazing. Legolas again, still cool. Boromir, dude, that's my boy Sean Bean. And the rest of the cast. You meet all these people who are going to go and be a part of this story. Not all of them travel with Frodo. In fact, none of them except for Sam travel with Frodo, but they're part of this story. So this is a important rise story arc because you're at this point where shit was bad, but now, hey, here's all the people who are going to make a damn difference in the world. Then we move on to the 5th story arc, which is the journey. This is another rise. And this is a Fellowship has a very positive adventure on their way towards Mordor. Now, there are times that things kind of go, okay, a little frightening. You get into the Mines of Moria, an amazing sequence getting in there. But even though, hey, Gandalf is saying it's dangerous, it's dangerous, it's dangerous, this 5th story arc never has a true sense of bad shit's going to happen. You get this feeling that, hey, we got this. We're going to make it to Mordor. We're going to toss that ring into Mount Doom, and we're going to wins forever. Then we move on to the 6th and final story arc of the Fellowship of the Ring. The disaster. And this is a defeat. And this is one of the best plummets I have seen in literature. There are others out there that are good, but this was amazing because they have a very high positive moment where they're in Moria, and even Gandalf is starting to feel, you know what, we'll probably be okay. Then they get to the burial chamber, they read the diary, and shit just falls apart. So this is a defeat, okay? It starts off at the highest point of positivity, not tension. This is not a climax. The highest point of positivity, shit falls downhill super fast in the Mines of Moria. Up to and including losing their strongest member, Gandalf. Ah, you fools! So, that escape with the Balrog, Gandalf falling to his death, and getting out to the shores of Gondor, that is a massive fall in positivity. Characters are brought to a point where the Fellowship is in jeopardy, but then you have a rise. Remember, this is a defeat, so there's a rise. They come back up. Aragorn's speech. You know, we can't have closure. We can always have vengeance. That kind of thing. We're back in. We've got this. We can do this. We meet Lothlorien and Galadriel. Things might just work out. And then Boromir pulls his shit, and everything goes to hell. The attack of the Archeia. Boromir getting turned into a pincushion. Frodo running away because he no longer trusts anyone. Samwise hunting him down because Samwise is too stupid to know when to quit, and I love him for it. Thank you, Sean Astin. Great scene. This dip is massive. You start off at a point where you are the D&D party and you're going to win, and suddenly you are down at the fucking bottom. The Fellowship is destroyed. Boromir is dead. Gandalf is quote-unquote dead. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are going to go chase after Merry and Pippin because they cannot find Frodo. And Frodo is on a boat alone with Samwise going into literally the mouth of hell. This story ends at the lowest point I have seen in a long time. And I've read a lot of books, so this was hard to beat. Game of Thrones excluded. Now we're going to go into the narrative structure. Now again, like before, we are not talking about the narrative structure of each story arc. We would be here all night. We're going to talk about the overall narrative structure, and I'll toss out the comments when I can. First, we have the status quo. The status quo here is absolutely, amazingly mundane. It is a birthday for Bilbo Baggins, the richest hobbit in Hobbiton / the Shire. Frodo has all the money. Everything's great. That's the status quo. What's the trigger? Now, depending on your point of view, you could say the trigger is Bilbo leaving, or the trigger is Gandalf getting a freaking clue. Honestly, I'm going to go ahead and go with the second one. The reason I say that is because although Bilbo leaving puts agency into Frodo, into the story, into Gandalf, to kind of figure something's wrong because of the way that Bilbo reacts, Gandalf doesn't really push the story forward until he figures out, holy shit, that is the One Ring. So the trigger for me, and feel free to disagree, is Gandalf realizing that the ring that Bilbo had was the One Ring, the Master Ring. Then you have the quest. That's like the majority of the book. That's attempting to get Frodo to Rivendell so that we can meet up with all the peoples and then go marching on derpy derp to Mordor to blow up the One Ring. That's the quest. The quest is a very straightforward adventure. Out of pretty much everything on this list, the Fellowship of the Wings quote-unquote quest is the most simplistic, and that's okay. But then there's a surprise. Now, there are many of them. Now, in talking about narrative structure, though, the big thing, the huge surprise is Gandalf's death. This is the moment in which the most unaccepted possible force... Oh, thank you! Thank you, human. I appreciate that. Yeah, that Gandalf was like, holy shit. Yes, Wrath of Wood, exactly, yeah. I love the movie, because the movie actually showed him at the library. The book doesn't do that, because it's all from Frodo's POV, I think. But yeah, that one time Gandalf looked at the books, did all the research, and went, we're in trouble. We're in serious trouble. So yeah, and thank you again for the compliment, human. All right, so the big surprise to me is, and there's many of them. Don't tempt me, fool. Do not tempt me. Oh, that movie has so many good quotes. I mean, that book has so many good quotes. So many good ones. Okay, so the big surprise is Gandalf's quote-unquote death. He is, if you've read The Hobbit, Gandalf is kind of the light deus ex machina that assists Bilbo and the dwarfs throughout most of the story. He is built up in The Hobbit and the first part of the Fellowship of the Rings as being invulnerable. I mean, he is basically an angel anyway. So when he quote-unquote dies, that is the unexpected force that gives agency to Aragorn, Frodo, and everyone else to actually attempt to do a thing without their super wizard. Then there's the critical choice. So this is another one of those you can debate over several moments. But for me, I've always believed the critical choice of the Fellowship of the Rings was Frodo putting on the ring and running from Barrymore. That was a moment in which that hobbit had a choice. Boromir was losing his shit. None shall. Hey, Cloud, welcome to the stream. Yes, I'm an agent of the secret fire. You shall not pass. All right. In Hobbit, he pops up and saves the day all the time. Wrath of Wood, yes, constantly. He constantly saves their asses. It's actually kind of funny. I love it. Yeah, every time. But that's why, going back 1 second to the surprise, his quote-unquote death was a stroke of genius, narrative genius. Because the first time I read it, I had never seen any of the films. I did not know where it was going. I was 10 years old at the time. I yelled out, holy shit, in my room. My mother comes running in thinking something's wrong. And I'm like, Gandalf died. And my mom starts laughing her ass off. She's like, keep reading, son. I'm so glad Teal is fine now. Oh, yeah. Well, it'll be about another week, Cloud, but she's resting right now. She's actually chilling out, so downstairs. But thank you, Cloud. I'll let her know that you guys are thinking about her. Critical choice, number 5. Frodo puts on the ring to escape Boromir. There are so many different ways that he could have reacted to that scene. Both my parents did. Zarsla, both of them did. So they knew what I was getting into. Yeah. They were the ones that recommended it. They're like, hey, you like fantasy? Read this. Oh, absolutely, Reverie. 10 years old, man. I would think I was 9 when I read The Hobbit. Okay, critical choice. Frodo could have done anything when Boromir attacked him. He could have screamed for Aragorn. He could have, shimmied and ran his little hobbit ass all the way down to the river. He could have done 1,000 things. What Frodo did was he put on the ring and ran. That's the critical choice. Frodo doing that changes the entire face of the quest irrevocably. Oh, you guys are awesome. Thank you. Yeah, no, my dad was amazing. He introduced me to a lot of the stuff I like. My mom too. Yeah, 10 years old. 10 years old. 9 for The Hobbit, 10 for Fellowship. And I think 11 and 12 were both Two Towers in Return. Well, I started reading Stephen King when I was like that age too. Eyes of the Dragon was my first Stephen King book. I was a huge fantasy buff. I didn't actually start getting into Stephen King's horror until years later. All right, so the climax. The climax is the battle on the shore. That is the battle of where you fight against the Archeia. Boromir gets turned into a happy pincushion. Thank you, Sean Bean. Have a good night. And, just basically the whole fellowship dissolves. That's the climax of the story. It is very brutal. It proves that Sean Bean dies in everything he's in, except for the Black Plague. Or the Black Death, and it was really a well-written scene. Actually, if you ever go ahead and get a chance to read the book, even if you don't want to read the whole series, the Fellowship itself reads really well, and that scene is amazing. Then there's the reversal, the consequences of the choice. This is what happens because of Mr. Pincushion and Frodo running away all the way home. The Fellowship is utterly destroyed. It ends. These characters do not all come together in the same place again until the defeat of Sauron. Watch it. Watch the films again. Read the book. You have the meeting at Rivendell is the last time these characters are together in totality, yet excluded until Sauron is defeated and they're in Minas Tirith bowing to Hobbit. So that's the reversal. The Fellowship is irrevocably destroyed and everything kind of passes into Bedlam. Then there's the resolution, the new status quo. The resolution, the status quo is now Frodo and Sam are by themselves. Sam Smeagol, who was following them. And Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are now running after Merry and Pippin, who have been captured by orcs. That's the new status quo. So the new status quo is, let's kind of look at from the old status quo. The old status quo is Sauron's been slowly gaining power. This is the beginning of the story. But everyone is living kind of their own little world. The elves, the dwarves, the hobbits, especially the hobbits, are all doing their own little thing. Aragorn's being a ranger because he doesn't have the balls to be the king, and the stewards of Gondor are assholes. It's a kind of crappy status quo, but no one's dying. The end, the new status quo, everything's in jeopardy. It is highly possible that Sauron, if he can find Frodo and Samwise, will kill them little fuckers and get the One Ring and win. Merry and Pippin are going to be captured and taken to probably either Onrak or Isengard. Oh, Isengard, because they're taking the hobbits to Isengard and are going to get tortured to death. It's a pretty shitty status quo. The Fellowship of the Rings ends up in a worse place than it began. Unlike the hope that was Final Fantasy VI, the Fellowship of the Ring ends up in one of the darkest possible places. Now we're going to open up, see if you guys have any questions, then I'm going to take a swig and move on to the last one. Excuse me. Miaca, you read The Hobbit to Lacing when she was in kindergarten. That you were like the best mom ever. Holy shit. I wish my parents had done that. I mean, I was like 9-ish. So, dude, that would have been amazing. All right. Moving on. Time to let it go. Disney's Frozen. All right, here we go. So, Disney's Frozen is a story of two sisters. We're going to go over the arcs first, and then we'll go over the narrative structure. So, Disney's Frozen's first story arc, which acts as the prologue for the film, minus the Frozen Heart song where little Kristoff finds trolls and has ice block. This starts with an accident. That's what I call it. So this is a fall. This is a fall archetype. Things are as good as they possibly could be for Elsa and Anna. They're princesses of Arendelle. Their parents, apart from what you learn about in story 2, are loving, normal human parents who take great care and love their daughters. Elsa has this magical curse that we don't know why she has it. We learn about that again in story 2, but it is what it is. And Anna wakes up her big sister, Frozen Hearts. Yes. There is definitely some inspiration into Frozen Hearts being about sisters from Frozen. Absolutely. So, having said that, back to this. Anna wakes up her sister, Elsa. They build a snowman, and Elsa accidentally zaps her sister in the head, brings up her destruction skill by 3, and unfortunately, Anna now has the world's worst case of brain freeze. They take the kid down to the trolls, and the memories are stripped. Memories of Elsa's magic, along with the frozen stuff that was giving her permanent brain freeze. So it's a fall. This is a fall. It was an idealistic scenario for these two kids. They were as happy as they could be. Their life was legit perfect. And because Elsa still needs to work on her destruction magic skill, she zaps her sister in the face. Not the greatest place to start. Then we have the second story arc, the snowman, which is actually encapsulated in a song, Do You Want to Build a Snowman? This is also a fall. This shows the degradation of two sisters' relationship over the course of childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. Jeez, thanks, Cloud. Fuck it, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to get Twitch banned. So, this is a degradation of relationship. This is Anna reaching out to her sister, a little less each time, and her sister who is feeling utter and complete fear to a primal level of her own powers, to the point where Elsa closes herself off from everything, including the one person who loves her the most, her sister. This is a fall. During the course of the first two story arcs, things go from idealistic to not good. Not good at all. Then we have the third story arc, which is the coronation. This is a failure archetype. So, during this one, there's an upswing. Things are going to be okay. For the first time in forever. Elsa actually has some hope. Maybe if she can get through this and become queen, things can be normal. Anna is utterly optimistic. In fact, she doesn't know if she's elated or gassy. But she's very happy about the fact the castle's going to get opened up. She's going to meet people, maybe even meet a guy. Who knows? Doesn't matter. She's going to have a good time. It's going to be great. Life's going to go back to normal. Huzzah. She meets the most handsome, dashing man ever who almost knocks her in the water. Hans. The two of them have that Disney moment connection where it's, oh, sweet. Elsa gets through her coronation. Manages to not freeze anything. Things are actually looking okay. We're on an upswing. Positive, positive, positive. And then Anna introduces her fiance. I love how they turned that trope on its head. To her sister, and all hell breaks loose. Elsa reacts poorly. Anna, who has no context under her sister's swing and emotion, loses her shit. Elsa's power comes out. This is a failure. So we started up idealistic. We got to this point where there's a beautiful amount of hope, where things can finally go back to normal, and it shits itself. Then we have the search. This is where the song Let It Go takes place. This is the bulk of the movie, actually, i.e. why I'm saying that you look at your story arcs in terms of milestones and status quos and stasises, not in terms of runtime. This is a defeat, and it's a very beautiful, sad defeat. Anna searches for her sister. Elsa has gone through her emotional transformation of Let It Go. Sidebar, when you watch that movie again, and you watch the scene Let It Go, keeping in mind how Frozen 2 goes. When it first came out, Teal and I actually talked about how that movie Let It Go, that song Let It Go, carries two meanings. The first is her letting go of keeping her, being the perfect girl. That perfect girl is gone. Let go of my emotions, let go of holding everything in. That's the surface. The bottom, the alternate part of Let It Go is she's also letting go of her humanity. You can't have that much power and be a human. Elsa is realizing on the back of her head on a subconscious level that she's kind of like a god. And I feel totally vindicated because in Frozen 2, she is kind of a god. So anyway, this whole point is Elsa rises. She comes to this realization that she has to be who she is, the quote-unquote Snow Queen. Anna reaches out to her sister, and the two of them have a moment where they almost reconcile. But because Anna mentions to Elsa, hey, you frozen Arendelle, Elsa dips. She dips hard. And when Anna reaches out to her, Elsa's fear seizes, and Elsa freezes Anna's heart, which, if you know from the beginning of the movie, you can't recover from. We have a slight swing back up when Kristoff brings Anna to the trolls, and they go, okay, we can fix you by a kiss of true love, by an act of true love. And they're like, oh shit, Hans, okay, boom, we got this. Anna can be saved. The dip then begins again for Anna because Anna's condition worsens. So this is a defeat. We had a chance, things were going great, and then they start driving again. For Elsa, it's the same way. She gets attacked by Wesselton's goons. Hans gives her a moment of redemption, and then Elsa is captured because she's too dangerous. Then we move to the fifth story arc, the betrayal. First off, I had no idea this was coming, so I was completely surprised by Hans' heel turn. So kudos to you guys if you were as surprised as me. If you figured it out, even more kudos. This is a failure, straight up failure. Anna and Elsa are in their most vulnerable state. Hans's betrayal nearly kills them both. It brings Arendelle and these two sisters to the absolute brink of destruction. And then finally we move to the final story arc, the sisters. This is a recovery archetype. So we're at the lowest point possible. Not in action, that's not climax, we'll get to that later. In the lowest possible point of positive negative polarity. Anna's dying. Elsa has given up all hope. Hans is going to win. Then you have this moment in which Anna sacrifices herself to save her sister, and that fixes herself. Her act of true love for her older sister saves herself. And then Elsa clicks in her head, that's what's been missing my whole life. He applies her love and fixes everything. This is a recovery story arc. They start out at the lowest possible point and then they climb back up. Actually, that's not really very good. They shoot up like a goddamn bottle rocket from the bottom back up to the top. And the two sisters are now closer than they've ever been. So, and yes, I agree, Miaca, 100%. That is what Teal and I love about Frozen. It's not romantic. There is no romance. Yes, they have a romance in the second story, and they kind of show at the end of the first one that Anna and Kristoff have a thing, but that's not the main romance. That's not the main love story, I should say. The main love story of Frozen is a love between two sisters, and that is why it is like Teal and I's favorite Disney film. And that's also carrying on, if I can apostatize for a moment about our game, the main love story, quote unquote, not romance, love story of the Rosenhearts is the love between two sisters, Victoria and Naomi. So yes, inspiration abound. Now, let's go over the narrative structure by Watts. The status quo of the beginning of the movie Frozen is a status quo of ideology. It is a perfect Disney lifestyle. You have the Disney kingdom with the good Disney king and the good Disney queen and the good Disney princesses, and everything is great. You have Kristoff, who's an orphan, and he's adopted, so he now has a family. It's an idealism. It's perfect. It is the best possible beginning for these characters. Then you have the trigger. The trigger is Elsa scoring a critical one on her frost magic at the beginning and slapping her sister in the face with an icicle. That's the trigger. She hits her sister in the head and everything starts to fall apart. The quest is twofold, of course, but it's basically the quest for the two sisters to reconcile themselves. It's the journey. Yeah, the Blazara. Exactly, Ventus. So the quest is Anna looking for Elsa, Elsa looking for herself, two sisters trying to reconcile who and what they are. That's the quest. It's a typical, it's a very good journey of discovery. The surprise, we all know what that is. That's Hans's heel turn. They do a great job of making Hans look like your typical Disney prince. They do a fantastic job of making the Duke of Wesselton, voiced by Wash from Serenity, look like the villain. They actually fool you. Then Hans gives that line, "Oh, Anna, if only someone loved you," and the whole thing gets flipped, and that's fantastic. So it's a great surprise. Then there's a critical choice. The critical choice, Weaselton, Wesselton. Then there is the critical choice. Okay. So the critical choice and the climax legit go hand in hand. They are within seconds of each other. The critical choice is Anna throwing herself between Hans and Elsa. That's the critical choice. Anna sacrificing herself and everything that she is to save her older sister. The climax is 5 seconds later. The sword breaks. Elsa, in despair, holds her sister, and her sister defrosts. That's the climax. And then the reversal is Anna defrosts, and then Elsa saves Arendelle. Hans gets punched in the face, and then put on a ship and shipped back to a dung heap. The Duke of Wesselton gets kicked in the ass. That's the reversal. The resolution is the two sisters are skating in the castle courtyard. That's the new status quo. The new status quo is identical to the old status quo with wisdom. They start off, so to answer what Zarsla said earlier, yes, you can exactly end up where you started, but you're not going to be the same person. Something changes. Elsa and Anna now have the same loving relationship they had in the beginning. Arendelle has that same idealistic Disney kingdomness, but they're different. They're wiser. They're smarter. They now understand that there's acceptance and love and friendship, sisterhood. So that's how Disney's Frozen ends. That's the new status quo. So we've gone through 3 of them. Every single one of these has moments that are pretty damn depressing. Final Fantasy VI is dark, very dark. It never actually gets light. The light is we get to live and we have a chance of making things better. It doesn't drop. Well, it does, but it doesn't drop constantly. But it does drop. But the world itself is just a dark world. Fellowship of the Ring, no, it doesn't end up well at all. Now, we know it ends up okay, but the actual first book, no, it's a pretty shitty place to start. The characters themselves, they may or may not make it. People are going to die. People did die. And then finally, Frozen. Frozen is a Disney world that falls to hell. So, if you chose Frozen, you're correct. While Frozen does not have the most negative ending, it actually has the most positive ending. It has the most negative action. Frozen falls the hardest, and it falls the most. The other two either start at a baseline that is lower, Final Fantasy VI, or don't fall as hard, as fast, as completely, as constantly, The Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship. So, if you were in the chat earlier and you said Frozen, then you were correct. Congratulations, you win a bonus slime. You win a slime eating a cookie. Now, that is the end of the lecturing portion of the presentation. This is where I open up. Right, you don't have as far to fall when you're at the bottom. Exactly, Miaca. That is 100% true. That is why Final Fantasy VI's fall isn't that strong of a fall. It's a bad fall, it's a shitty fall, but you're already pretty low down there. The Lord of the Rings, it's a hard fall, but the world isn't great to begin with. Frozen, you start off at the top, and you end up as low as you can go. So I'm going to open this up to questions for a little bit. And then if we have the desire to, we can go in and we can create a story arc of our own, or we can call it for the night. It really depends on what you guys are in the mood for. I can probably go for a little while longer. My throat is sinuses and allergies. I can probably make it for about another 30, 45 minutes. I don't know if this will be a full 3-hour stream. We'll see. But I do want to have a chance to field questions from you guys if you want to talk about story arc. And if you want to apply this to any of our previous presentations, feel free, go ahead. I'd love to hear what y'all have to say. Also, I'm going to toss this out as a question to those who are watching. Was this helpful? People have this misunderstanding that story arcs are measured beats that fit in neatly into boxes, and they don't. As we went over earlier, the best stories take multiple story arcs, blend them together, run them in parallel, have them influence each other, and then make it look like it's one story arc. I mean, would you guys prefer that perhaps I go over each one of those books again, those 3 again, and apply Watts's structure to each one of the arcs? I could do that if you wanted. That's a lot of work. Arcs should be as seamless as possible in the sense that the end status quo Ventus, the new status quo, is the status quo, the old status quo of the next story arc. So story arc A ends with a status quo. That status quo is the beginning status quo of the story arc B. So yes, and that, it is absolutely seamless. And yes, Miaca, it is a lot to digest. That's why I'm okay with this being a shorter stream so that people can digest it. This is not going to be the hardest thing that we cover, but this is going to be one of the most intense things that we have in Creator Classroom, at least in the near future, because of the sheer amount of information. Now, I do want to make a statement here to people who are like, oh my God, do I have to do all this work? Well, you don't have to apply every single thing I taught you in every single instance, because you have to find for yourself what works for you. I've given you a lot of material to work with tonight. What you have to do now is figure out what terminologies, what pieces, parts work best for you. And if they don't work good for you, then find one that does. When I go ahead and publish this, I'll also toss up a link to Watts's structure from Nigel Watts, and I'll also put on Joe Bunting's article. But feel free to do your own research and see if there's something else that you feel works better. So again, yeah, this is massive. Oh yeah, Reverie, this is, yeah, please do. I think you are, yeah, if you're a sub, then you should be able to get the VOD link later on the Discord channel. Yeah, these are simply tools. Right. There is no one right way to create a story. There's no one right way to create a character. There's guidelines that you can use that benefit you the most. Now, hopefully these Creator Classrooms help you guys come up with the way that works best for you. The end product is what is important, and that's what Teal and I look for when we do a critical play on a game, or we look at a book, or we look at a movie and we critique it. We're not looking at, did you follow Watts's narrative? We're not looking at, do you follow Bunting's 6 variants of movement? We look at the final product, tell you what works and doesn't work, and then offer suggestions based off of our own knowledge, what could help. The Creator Classroom gives you those tools we use. I'm going to take a second here and take a swig. My throat's bothering me. Woo. I'm going to have an amazing dinner tonight when this is over with. I have been marinating salmon all day long. It's going to be so good. Anyway, yeah, so continued questions. If I don't see questions in the next 3 minutes, I'll post out a decision. I'll post out a poll on what we can do next. I find these tools as better at helping me evaluate my writing after the fact, so I can see if I missed anything. Thank you, Miaca. Yeah, exactly. You want to take what you learned in these Creator Classrooms and any other classrooms you go to, and then kind of use it to critically analyze what your work might be deficient in. Ventus wants a workshop. Ventus just wants me to stream for the next hour and a half. On a sidebar, if you guys do decide to disconnect at any point, tomorrow will be a roundtable chat for our Slime-tastic supporters. That's our tier 2 and higher Twitch subs and our $10 and higher Patreon backers. So if you are around 5 o'clock Central Standard Time on the Studio Blue Discord, and you are a Slime-tastic supporter, feel free to join in. The roundtable will just be me this week, again, because Teal is still recovering, but I will chat with you guys, answer questions directly. A lot of times just me and Damian Floyd just shooting the crap for an hour, and that's fine. But if you guys want to pop in and ask something directly, or just chat, absolutely. Wednesday and Thursday will be Edge of Eternity, a critical play again. We're going to continue to rip that game apart and put it back together in the hopes that the devs make it the best game possible. I have been haunting their message boards on Steam, and I'm very optimistic they listen to feedback. I have a lot of hope based off of the posts that I've read. So, knock on wood for Edge of Eternity. And then, of course, Friday will be an AMA. If Teal wants to say anything, she will. And if things continue to go well, not promising anything, but if things continue to go well, Teal will be back next Monday. But we shall see how my wife feels. So, we just have a few more seconds before we are at the exact hour and a half mark. So, what I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and shift over to a different scene. So, give me a second here. There we go. And what I'm doing here is I am going to open up a poll. See if I can make this work. That's not a poll. That's a slime. We want a poll. There we go. All right, so I'm going to open up this poll here, and I am going to see what you guys want to do. Make this a live poll feed or poll dance, something. Right, here we go. Let me take that, and I'm going to say revisit stories with Watts. Boom. What to do next? There we go. All right, so option 1 will be that. Really? There we go. Option 2 will be workshop. That's not how you spell workshop. That's how you spell workshop. And option 3 will be a Mortis. All right, let's go ahead and bring the poll up. It should pop up. There we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and leave the poll up for a few minutes while I have some more soda. So if you are watching this stream at this time, please do me a solid. Even if you're just lurking, please just pop in a poll question. Pop in a poll answer. You just type in 1, 2, or 3. If you want to completely lurk and don't want to interact, that's fine. But this will give me an idea of what you guys want. And I will leave this up for a couple of minutes while I drink my soda. And whatever the stream decides to do, we will do. So 1 is we're going to revisit the stories. We'll go over Final Fantasy VI, Fellowship of the Rings, and Frozen again, except for each story arc, I will apply Watts' structure. So it's going to be heavily workshop at that point. Number 2 is we do a workshop where we create a story arc together, perhaps based off of the AI story we had last time. Just type a number. Just type the number and hit it. Yeah, just type the number and press it. Hold on, I think I can clear you. There we go. No, I didn't do it. Hold on. Ba-ba-bum. That didn't let me. I don't think there's a way to clear that. Sorry, dude. Yeah, 2 will be a workshop where we create a story arc together. And then 3 would be just more discussion. Hey, Cloud, I don't think it matters that you typed the wrong number, dude. You good? People got you covered. Oh my God, people got you covered. People getting you covered, Cloud. By the way, does anyone know if Hawk's streaming tonight? I'll be sure to raid him when this is over with. Anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna leave it other for a minute or so, and yeah, right. he do what he do. By the way, if there are any particular questions regarding this one particular thing, let me know. Like all that stuff we just talked about, if you have a particular question, just go, hey, Steele, by the way, and just throw it at me. I'm just here to be the supportive. Oh, you're very supportive, Kia. Thank you. He's hosting your channel. Awesome. Very cool. And Kia, we appreciate everyone who's here through Hawk Zombie. Thank you so much. Steele and I love you guys. So yes, I think I know where we're going in, but I'll leave it open for just another minute or so. All right. 3 minutes. Fantastic. All right, so unless I get a glut of something else, I think I know the direction we're going. Yeah, Cloud, if he does start hosting, let me know, and as soon as it's over streaming, let me know, and as soon as it's over, I'll rate him. I appreciate you. Okay, 1 more minute on my end. I know the poll doesn't show exact accuracy, but I think I know the direction we're going in. Awesome. All right, 30 more seconds. Here's your chance to throw out some numbers at me. Loving it. By the way, I did have a good weekend. I hope you all did as well. I finally got some rest. I slept most of Saturday and about half of Sunday. So I'm caught up on my rest. So that's good. Feel, of course, is relaxed and resting. All right, polls closed. All right. It's going to be a workshop. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go on to BRB. I'm going to get everything set up on my part. I'll be back in legit a minute or two. BRB, guys. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm back. Although I do have a question for those of you who are watching. Is there any music playing on the BRB or was it silent? Toss me out that, let me know. All right, so what we got right now is we're going to work on that AI character we did last week. We're going to make a story arc for him. We're going to analyze and put them all together, create it, apply watts, bunting. It was silent. Okay, then I know what I need to do to fix it. So, yes, this is going to be fun. So that means that the ending credits are going to be silent. So just so you guys know that. So I will be fixing that moving forward. Huzzah. All right. Here we go. So we have story arc for AI character, and this is that stuff we did last time. We got a whole bunch of this happy stuff with this character. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a story arc in this random slice of story that we created last week with a character we created last week. When we're done, I'm going to hit that credits icon. I'm going to go to bed. Make some dinner and go to bed. All right, here we go. So what we want to do is we want to create a story. So what I said I'm going to do also for these workshops now is what I'm going to do. Okay, sorry, I got distracted by a question. Key, I'll answer that question in a second. What I'm going to do is I am going to start putting stuff out. If you feel that you have something to contribute, please go ahead and throw something out at me. So this character was the character we created last week. Last week's Creator Classroom was creating sympathetic characters, and we created an artificial intelligence. So I should probably go through this one just for a refresher anyway. So this character that we created last week is an artificial intelligence. And the big problem with this one is that it's like, now, we don't have a lot of details. We didn't really work out a world. We just created a character concept. But this particular AI is a matrix observer style thing. So humanity either lives like in a matrix or humanity lives on some idealistic lifestyle similar to the humans in WALL-E. It's there. So this observer AI that works for a mother AI is doomed to watch humanity die. Knows humanity is in serious jeopardy, and at some point, because of the laws of robotics, it can't intervene and humanity is going to die, and it's, oh no, how can I fix this? It's a good AI. It cares about humanity, and it keeps people who are in poor situations from suffering. So it has a lot of positivity. It is a sympathetic, loving AI. It cares about people, but it feels powerless over the big issue. And it actually has pets that it keeps to take care of. So this AI is going to, during the course of this sample story, try to save humanity. Can it do it? But it's also going to try to rescue the other AIs from this linear Asimovian way of thinking to a more sympathetic, positive, pro-human way of thinking. And then, is the AI able to overcome its own limitations without basically corrupting its own core? This character goal that these characters has, the things this character wants to do in this sample story, is it wants to save humanity, redeem the other AIs, reconcile its own programming, treat its pets fairly, and undermine the mother AI, who's the main villain, the main antagonist, its immutable orders. And it wants to reconcile itself as opposed to, as well as saving humanity. So we kind of put those goals together. And then we put the corollary, which is the protagonist AI wants to help pets so that the mother AI is not interested. So there's a lot of little pieces, parts. I'm not going to go too deeply into it because it's kind of moving outside the scope. If you were part of last week, you'll kind of remember it. If you don't, we can always come back and revisit this. Or we could just toss out a lot of this stuff and say, hey, we're rewriting anyway, because a lot of times a writer, whether they be for games or books, will start to develop a character a certain way, and then as they write their narrative, their story, the actual text, they'll go, ooh, wait, I need to change this thing about my character because it doesn't work. So you don't force your character into the narrative. You have the two kind of combine together and meld cohesively. It's a homogeny you're looking for. So anyway, that's the basics of the character. We can come back at any point. We even go into the conflict, etc. So this needs to be just a basic story arc. So I'm going to go ahead and deal with a basic premise. The basic premise will be, and we'll make this simple for the sake of workshop so that we can all throw out ideas together, is this will be when the protagonist AI realizes that unless they do something, humanity is doomed. There you go. Real simple. It's a simple basic premise. It's a moment of realization in which the protagonist character realizes, I have to do a thing or bad stuff is going to happen. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start putting together narrative structure using Watts. After we do the narrative structure with Watts, we'll then look at the arc movement and see how we fit this into Bunting. And then from there, we'll develop a very thin outline that we would use to actually construct the chapter, game part, etc. So let's go ahead and go with the stasis. This is the opening. This is the status quo, and that's me misspelling stasis. So what is the stasis? All right. The stasis is the old status quo. Now, for the whole purpose of this, like I said, I'm going to go nice and slow and kind of walk you through my thought process, but you all have the ability at any point in time to throw out your own suggestion. This is an interactive workshop, but I'm not going to go and wait and let you guys, have long dead silences. That's boring. So feel free at any point to interrupt. I'm watching chat while I'm typing. All right. So the stasis is the old status quo. This is the stagnation of the AI. And I am thinking like in terms of Wall-E, where Wall-E is just basically just smashing garbage and not crushing roaches all day. And that's all they do. And they have tin cans and stuff because they're bored by themselves. So when I look at this stasis and I think of this observer AI, I'm thinking that the AI is stuck or is living, I say in quotes, an AI, through a daily diagnostic routine of sorts that has them watching over an aspect of humanity. Now, I want to define that aspect a little better because since we're going to make an outline, I obviously don't want to just be burp. So I'm thinking that, and I've thought about this since last week, we could either have the AI watching humanity directly, or since we're going to have a extinction level event, we could have a thing. I also want to know what exactly does I do. We don't have that, Kia. We don't know. We never actually made that decision. That's actually what I'm trying to decide right now. So the two things that we kind of tossed in the air, but we didn't really decide on, was that the AI watches over the life functions of humanity. But there's also the possibility maybe this AI watches over the solar system, solar flares, things like that. Inflammation of the corona. A prominence coming out and just frying everything. Because solar winds can be very dangerous. Magnetism. Maybe it's on maybe this is even on Earth. Maybe it's on a spaceship or a space station and they're getting close to a neutron star or a magnetar. So, I'm kind of thinking that. Since I'm writing a dark fantasy, the hero is always a prisoner. There's no status behind they're already endangered. He has advances we want to make. We basically have said it's either Wally or Matrix level, Archeia. So it's either everyone's living in a virtual AI in a paradise, or everyone is on a space station ship, Super Earth, Dyson Sphere, what have you, where their lives are just in a comfort. Yeah, it's high advanced. It would be a type 2, type 2 civilization. So that's kind of the direction we went in last week. So Zephyr says, since I'm writing a dark fantasy, the hero is already a prisoner. There's no stasis because they're already endangered. Well, actually, that is a stasis, Zephyr. They're in a prison. That is their status quo. I don't agree with the term stasis in the sense of it being a high definition, because it doesn't necessarily have to mean stagnation. It doesn't have to necessarily mean comfort. If the story opens with your character as a prisoner, even if they're on death row, the status quo is them being on death row. And breaking that status quo is whatever the story's going to take place, or whatever's going to happen. The clandestine advance, right? So I like the idea of putting humanity on a space station, personally. So I think what I'm going to do, so this diagnostic AI watches over the life support systems governing the I love Matrix, so I'm going to say virtual world. Humanity is floating around in. The space station, using air quotes again, is happily flying through space. Because, technically speaking, unless we found a way to go really, really fast, break that light speed barrier or warp space or something, it's going to take a long time for us to get to even Proxima Centauri. So there we go, flying through space. Okay, diagnostic alley, cute Ventus. Okay, so now we get into the meat, the trigger. We need to come up with an impetus for the AI. This is going to have the AI start to realize there's a problem. Now keep in mind, this story arc is just the realization. So the goal of this story arc, at the end of this story arc, the AI is going to know that humanity is in danger. So our job now as writers is to get the AI, the protagonist, from the stasis point to, oh shit, humanity is in danger. This is not the full book where we're getting the AI to save humanity. This would be like a chapter 1 or 2, or a first act of a film, or the first hour of a game. So the trigger needs to be something that brings them in a direction where they will eventually find out that humanity is in mortal peril. I think that it's easy, and again, feel free to toss out any ideas you guys have. I think some kind of an alarm or something that pulls the AI out from its routine. Something happens in a certain part of the Matrix, in a certain part of the virtual world, that causes itself to be endangered by its standard. So the AI realizes that humanity is endangered by its standard. Right. What will happen is by the end of this, by the resolution, the AI is going to realize that humanity is in danger. That is where we are headed. the rest of the story will be the AI attempting to break free of its Asimovian laws, etc., and its own procedures and the mother AI to save humanity. This is just that one part of the story where the AI realizes there's a problem. So I like the AI realizing that there's an issue early on, and I think that some kind of a alarm going off, or some kind of a scan, or some type of anomaly, let's identify what the problem. I'm going to go ahead and say that the problem is a neutron star. Flashes from a neutron star. Not as deadly as a black hole, and neutron stars can cause immense amounts of magnetic energy. Oh, here we go. Reverie says humanity is using some kind of resource that they need to keep the support system running for something silly, and when the protag AI brings up to the mother AI, she tells the protag to ignore it despite what obviously happened. Okay. So a lack of a resource, Reverie. Okay, well, that could take us in a different direction. So a lack of a resource. Okay, here we go. I can work with that, Reverie. Protag AI. It's a fuel alarm. I'm speaking in vague terms because we can fill this in with whatever we want. It's a fuel alarm in reference to the fuel source used for, let's see, we don't want to have it be, got to be something that'll lead it to the direction of, shit, there's a real serious problem, not just a minor problem. Something they normally wouldn't. Here we go. So the protag AI, and I can probably put this into my neutron star because I'm all about celestial bodies being crazy. The protag AI gets a fuel alarm in reference to a fuel source used for the theta wave sleep functions of the humans in the VR world. There we go. So just throw a whole bunch of science at there. Just science at it until it starts working. But what it is that when the humans are in a sleep situation, this one fuel source stimulates their theta waves so that even if they're in a virtual world, they're still able to attain through actual sleep. Their brains go through the cleaning cycle, plaques are cleaned, chemical releases, etc. So we'll just say sleep functions, stop throwing pseudoscience. The sleep functions of the humans in the VR world. There we go. So this particular fuel source X, is used to give humanity proper sleep when it's in its plugged in VR, so that they can have their brain clean. It's a minor thing. Right. Okay. So this is the quest. This is what the protag AI is going to do over the course of this story arc. So as this fuel source has never been low before, the protag AI has to, and this will work in that mother AI thing, Reverie, has to petition the mother AI for support. No, permission. Has to petition the mother AI for permission to leave its assigned area and reroute the fuel source. So what I have here is this. So now the protagonist AI has realized that this one fuel source that fuels the sleep is low. This has never happened before. It's not supposed to. It shouldn't go low. Okay, so the protagonist AI petitions the mother AI. Because the mother AI is the person who will allow the protagonist AI to leave their area. AIs don't leave their area. They stay in their little circuits. The mother AI has to give permission. The mother AI says no. None of the AI have been programmed to deal with the fuel running out. Right, yeah, exactly, Ventus. This has never happened before. There's no protocol. Mother AI says no. So now we kind of move on. This will give us a nice little conspiracy theory. I think we're going to like the direction this goes in. A little bow here. Okay. So now we go with the surprise. This is where things get a little weirder. Oh, actually, let's finish the quest here. Hold on. So the protag AI has to find creative uses of... Give me a second. The protag AI has to find creative uses to refuel that function. Okay. So what's happening here is, this is the quest. This is the journey. The protagonist AI petitions the mother AI. She says no. Okay. Now the protagonist AI has to come up with a creative solution. The reason we're doing this is this. If the protagonist AI is going to eventually fix the problem that's going to kill humanity as this book, game, movie goes on, we have to establish that the protagonist AI has the ability to think outside the box, some level of creative problem solving. Even if it's never been programmed for that before, its necessity is the mother of invention. The protagonist AI now has to do this. So this is their chance as a writer to have them do something creatively. Reverie says maybe we could have the protag AI realize it rather than a direct alarm through observation from his pets. That's fine too, Reverie. Yes, we could do that as well. In fact, I'll go ahead and put that alternate protag AI notices the pets are acting odd from lack of REM sleep. I like that a lot, by the way, Reverie, so I'll probably end up using that. But notes are notes. Kia says, could be no program was, I don't know, created to handle the refueling. Exactly, right. Or this fuel source, Kia, was supposed to be infinite. It was supposed to last the journey to Proxima Centauri or whatever. So there's no protocol. There is no protocol. And that would cause the protagonist AI to be forced to think outside the box. So here's the surprise. While the protag AI is thinking outside the box, it notices other AI, these will be the ones it redeems later on in the story, also having issues with getting the mother AI to approve leaving their sectors. So now we have the surprise, the complication, the thing that's just different. The protagonist AI was like, well, I've got to do this, otherwise people are going to go nuts because they're not getting REM. Fine, I'll come up with this creative solution. As it's doing its creative solution, it knows its buddy AI over there is also having problems with the mother AI. That's not right. And then his buddy over there, and that one buddy over there. Wait, the mother AI is not letting anyone leave their sector to do anything? What's up with that? He says, no protocol made for the AI. They were coded. Yeah, exactly. Right. In other words, have it be so that this is not the normal. Right. You are disrupting the status quo because the status quo has no thing. That's another good idea, Ventus. All right. Then we have the critical choice. So what we have so far is the status quo of things were normal. Something happens through pet observation. I love that idea. That it's not going to work out. Pet observation. Teams aren't sleeping. Pets aren't sleeping properly. Humans aren't sleeping properly. Okay, that's a problem. Goes for the mother AI for permission. Mother AI says no. And the protag AI is like, okay, Haas, I'm going to fix it my own way then. Protagonist AI goes to fix it. Doesn't work out. Something's wrong. Okay, now, exactly, Reverie. Thank you. Good. That's where I wanted you to go. Because this is the critical choice. The protagonist AI was just doing its job. It was going to solve its problem creatively so that humans could go to sleep again. And then it notices other AI is having the same problem. So now, the critical choice. The protag AI leaves its sector of its own board because something is wrong. And you, the viewer, Reverie, like Reverie said, are curious. Exactly, Kia. We can go the cover. We can go the cover-up route. We can go the intentional programming route. And there's another one. There's another route. There's many routes. Here's the route I'm gonna propose. The climax. The protag AI finds out that the mother AI is malfunctioning due to massive magnetic interference by an approaching neutron star. So, instead of it being some dark cover-up and the mother AI is nefarious and evil, the mother AI is just completely malfunctioning. The whole thing is busted already. So what we have now is the ice cream machine. Yeah, the ice cream machine broken route, exactly. The protagonist AI has been dumped directly into a situation that has already gone foobar. It's much like a lot of your animes where the bad guy already did the bad thing a long time ago and the heroes are just dealing with the consequence. Literally, the protagonist AI missed the event where the mother AI got blowed up, got scrambled. That's the climax, is that realization. The other question you need to ask is, why did the machine break? Exactly. And that is what will happen. That's a good, Zephyr, that is the question that you ask, and then you answer as the story continues. Remember, this story arc focuses only on this one point, but yes, why did the machine break? What was it about its design that allowed this magnetic field from this neutron star to break it? Did we not encounter that? I mean, did humans, the people who designed the mother AI, right, why didn't anyone else break? Right, did the mother AI shield everyone with herself? And she's the only one that broke. Did humans just not see that neutron star? Did they not account for it? Did something else happen, another malfunction or sabotage, that caused the ship to reroute and head towards this neutron star as opposed to, where it's supposed to go? Exactly, Reverie. You've created a sympathy now. The mother AI is going to be the antagonist of the story and is going to do everything it can to destroy the protagonist AI, even though the protagonist AI is trying to save humanity. But what you've done now is you've created a sympathetic villain. If it's a slow process, that would start. Exactly, right? The corruption could spread. Exactly, Kia. You have so many options now. Okay, now we have the reversal, which is the consequence. So these also, tons of routes to go. We have all different directions we can go in as to where this story could go next. All right, fine. Let's do it this way. Let's say this. The protag AI, sorry. The protag AI immediately retreats. So you could have like an Eye of Sauron moment, all right? Before the mother AI notices it. So think of it like a Eye of Sauron. The protag AI leaves its sector, peeks its little Wally head or whatever, sees the mother AI, ass fried like the MCP from Tron, just nuclear crazy, and there's a neutron star coming, and the protag AI is like, oh shit, and ducks back. That's the reversal. And then we have the resolution. The protag AI does a few calculations, because programs can calculate, right? They can do math. Yeah, oh shit, with a 1. And realizes that in X amount of time, everything is gonna fry. And that's our new. Yeah. Becomes a new mother. Well, right, exactly, Zarsla. That right. This is just the one little story arc here. This is this one piece. And this sets up for the major conflicts we came up with last week. So yes, this particular setup is here. We're gonna go over it again. So what happens is the protagonist AI is doing its job, it's doing its thing. And I like that it notices. I really like that one. Because that way, instead of it being an alarm, it's so unassuming. No one ever thought this was going to happen. So the protagonist AI is doing its thing. It notices that the pets are acting odd, and it starts running diagnostics on the pets that are living in the AI. And the protag AI goes, wait a minute, my pets aren't getting REM sleep. Then it starts running human analysis on the humans. Wait a minute, why are people getting less and less REM? What's going on? So then it realizes that this one fuel source that was supposed to be infinite is now up, and it's not there anymore, and no one's going into REM sleep. This is bad. So the protagonist AI goes to the mother AI and says, hey, I need to leave my sector and go refuel this. The mother AI says, you shall not pass. So the protagonist AI has to come up with a creative use to refuel. And as it's doing that, it realizes other AIs are also being you shall not pass by the mother AI. What's going on? Critical choice. The agency that changes everything. Protagonist AI leaves its sector of its own accord and finds the mother AI is malfunctioning due to this massive magnetic interference by an approaching neutron star. Yeah, firewalled. Well, that's true, Zarsla. Yeah, and also, Reverie, Zarsla. Sorry. The protagonist AI could become a mother AI. This is actually a direction it could go in. So that's really kind of cool. And then the reversal, the protagonist AI retreats before the mother AI notices, has that oh shit moment. And then the resolution, after doing a few calculations in its home base, it realizes all hell's gonna break loose. We're all gonna die. Everybody gonna die. I don't fix this. And that is the end of a story arc. So that story arc right there sets up for the rest of the book, or game, or movie, whatever. This is a chapter or two chapters. This is the part of a game. This is the opening act of a movie. I know, right, Reverie? So, do you all have any questions? Because this can go in so many directions, and I'm seeing it going through chat right now. This can go in all these different directions. You could have this go to, okay, why did it initially malfunction, like Kia was saying? Why, what else is happening? Why did it break? Why did the whole thing break, like Zephyr asked? What's going on? This is a slow process. Is it a corruption, like Kia says? Could other AIs get corrupted? Or is it just the mother AI? So these questions that you guys are asking in chat are absolutely the questions a writer/game designer should be asking. Because now you're leading onto the next parts of your story. And there are so many directions this can go in. Also, depending on the medium. If this was a book, it could be going more that route of, isolation, and you have, slowly bit by bit, sectors are corrupting, that kind of thing. Hey, if this is a video game, this would make an amazing puzzle style game where you have to puzzle your way through certain areas. Either solving logic puzzles or number puzzles. I mean, heck, you could even make this like a math blaster game. There are so many options you have with this. And as you go through your story, you're answering these questions up here. Is the AI able to save humanity? Can the AI convert the other AIs to its way of thinking? Can it save the other AIs up to and including the mother AI? And lastly, can the AI accomplish these goals without undermining its own core programming? We talked last week about a potential sacrifice where the protag AI basically turns itself into a virus in order to save everything. Maybe that's the direction the story goes in. Right, Ventus, yes, sleep automata. So yeah, that's the workshop. Imagine playing this out like exactly, Reverie, like a latent, There's so many ways it can go. It depends on the medium too, and that's one thing that we don't go over in the workshops, is the different applications, because that would be like another hour at least. But if this was a book, you would you'd attack this in one way. If this is a video game, you'd attack it in another. Some games, some stories lend themselves better to a video game medium. Heck, you could even throw in why the mother AI doesn't have like a failsafe. Exactly, Kia. There's so much. And by the way, if anyone sees the stuff that we create on this Creator Classroom and wants to run with it either in like RPG Maker or their own or another game engine, or wants to write a short story, go ahead. I do ask that you credit the classroom because we're all a part of this, but you know, hey, if your creative juices are flowing because of this and you want to run in a direction, you have Studio Blue's blessing. So yeah, I'm going to open up the last minute questions. Give me a second here. I'm going to move that over there. There we go. Was this helpful, by the way? Was it helpful for you guys to go through a workshop and kind of see construction? Oh, you know what? We forgot to do the bunting part. This is a fall. No, actually, it's not a fall. This is a failure. Yeah, this is a failure. There's a rise as the protagonist AI attempts to accomplish something, and then shit goes sideways. So yeah, it's a failure. I'll just write that down. The failure. Watch later this week, I'll be looking at it going, what the hell did I write? Well, yeah, we failed. No, it's what it's called. Yeah, it's a failure. This is definitely the failure route. Right. It starts off on the positive with the protagonist AI saying, I'm going to fix it. I got a plan. And then realizing we all going to die. Yeah, definitely a failure route. So cool. It was helpful. I'm glad you guys liked it. We are going to continue. As you notice, we have several different types of classrooms. We have a world building series. We have a character building series, and this is the story building series. So this will continue one day in the future with a new thing where we're going to tackle other parts of story creation. I am going to probably want to end it soon. My voice is definitely starting to crack. But I don't think writing an outline is necessary. I think you guys, especially the ones who have been vocal in chat, I think you see the direction this is going in. So highly, highly positive in every possible way. So if anyone has any last minute comments or questions, it'll give me a second to finish off this Coke. And then we can go ahead and call it for the night. You will not hear any exit music, and I know why. So don't worry about that. We'll catch you next time. But yeah, any last minute questions, comments, thoughts? Anything? Hawk is streaming. Awesome. Bibhatep, sorry I wasn't here. Was celebrating my dad's birthday. Well, happy birthday. I'm the I need to get a kazoo reverie for whenever the exit music fails. I can go. I totally need to. I need to do that. That needs to happen. All your fun when it happens, reverie. You will know you were responsible for this. I'll run it by Teal. I'm sure she'll agree with it. All right, so yeah, I will give another minute if there's any other last minute questions, and then I will go ahead and give it a call and slap this on over to Hawk before the world ends over on my side, because I am hungry and my throat hurts. Oh my god, I'm so tired. I hope you guys have had a good time. I really do. I hope you've had a good time. I hope you've learned something, and I hope that you're able to take this away and make your stories better. Remember the most important thing. Story arcs don't have to be tightly structured. It's okay to have some looseness, whatever you're comfortable with. But you have to remember that a story arc is a milestone in your overall story. So treat it that way. Don't treat it as a hanging thread. Treat it as something that has a definitive start and a stop, even if the stop is just literally picked up in the next word. That's fine. Stasis. New stasis. Status quo. New status quo. That formula is tried and true. It has been done forever. So all you have to do is remember it has a place where it starts, it has a place where it stops, and where it stops is where the next one starts. And that, you will find it that you're never going to have dangling, weird, or just broken story arc. So anyway, I am going to call it for now because I am exhausted. I do want to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight. I want to thank you all for asking all those questions, for those comments, for throwing all them right hooks and left hooks. Y'all have been amazing as always. I will be back on Wednesday, where I will be doing Edge of Eternity, and I will do Edge of Eternity as a critical play both Wednesday and Thursday. Friday we will have our AMA, and hopefully we will have a teal back next week. Anyway, if you like what you saw, leave a smack down like below, subscribe to our channel, consider supporting us on Patreon, connect with us over Facebook, Twitter, Discord, and I'll see you in the next video!
Oh, you make me wanna talk back to you. Say it like that. If I hate you, then find someone